The Alchemy of Softness, transforming pain into purpose. For centuries, we've been told that strength looks like armor, like walls built high and defenses never breached. But what if true power lies in the places we've been taught to hide? The vulnerable spaces, the soft edges, the wounds that we've been desperately trying to conceal. I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Tearrea Johnson, a visionary whose work has fundamentally transformed how Black women navigate professional spaces while honoring their authentic selves. Her insights illuminate a revolutionary truth. Our deepest pain often contains the seeds of our highest purpose. Through her groundbreaking advocacy and mentorship, Tearrea has created pathways for countless women to reclaim their power through vulnerability rather than in spite of it. She stands as a beacon in a world that often demands conformity, showing us all what courage looks like when wrapped in authenticity. What struck me most about our conversation wasn't just the wisdom she shared, but how that wisdom challenges everything we've been conditioned to believe about success, particularly for Black women professionals. We live in a world that celebrates the grind, the hustle, the never stop, never rest mentality that has us wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor. But beneath that celebration lies a dangerous myth that our worth is measured by our capacity to endure pain without flinching. I want to tell you about Walanza Hall. Early in her corporate career, Walanza faced setback after setback. Despite stellar performance reviews, she watched colleagues get promoted while she remained stuck. As a Black woman in leadership, her empathetic management style was often viewed with skepticism. Too soft, not assertive enough, not fitting the mold of what leadership should look like. For years, she did what many of us do. She code switched. She adopted the hard edges and authoritative presence that seemed required for advancement, and it was slowly killing her spirit until one day she made a decision that would transform not just her career, but her entire understanding of power. She decided authenticity was non negotiable. Instead of hiding her empathetic approach, she amplified it. She began sharing personal stories in team meetings. She advocated openly for mental health days. She mentored other women of color facing similar challenges. And something remarkable happened. Her team's engagement score soared. Innovation flourished as employees felt safer bringing forward new ideas. Retention rates improved dramatically under her leadership. By embracing vulnerability as a strength rather than hiding it as a weakness, Walanza didn't just succeed, she redefined what success could look like. She became the youngest VP at her firm and launched an internal mentorship program specifically for Black women that has since been recognized industry wide. Her story illustrates what Tearrea Johnson emphasized in our interview. The journey to our higher calling is shaped not by avoiding pain, but by how we respond to it, by transforming it, by alchemizing it into something that serves not just ourselves, but others walking similar paths. But this transformation requires something that our culture rarely encourages, especially for Black women: prioritizing our own well being. For generations, we have internalized the message that self sacrifice equals worthiness, that putting ourselves last is somehow noble, that burning out is just the price of admission for having a seat at the table. This mindset isn't just personally destructive, it's professionally limiting. When we operate from a place of depletion, we lose access to our creativity, our intuition, our innovative thinking. We become reactive rather than responsive. We survive rather than thrive. I'm reminded of a powerful initiative led by Leanne Dolce, who created a coaching cohort specifically for high achieving Black women suffering from chronic burnout. These women, executives, entrepreneurs, community leaders, had reached impressive heights professionally while feeling increasingly hollow personally. Many arrived believing their ambition required constant struggle. That rest was the luxury they couldn't afford. That boundaries were obstacles to advancement rather than foundations for sustainability. Through practices like journaling circles and somatic awareness exercises, these women learned something revolutionary. Honoring their needs didn't diminish their impact, it amplified it. One participant negotiated a flexible work schedule without penalty after years of fearing such a request would derail her career. Another finally launched her consulting business after setting firmer limits at her day job, creating the mental space needed for entrepreneurship. As Dolce beautifully phrased it, softness became their armor, not their Achilles heel. This is the paradox that Tearrea Johnson illuminated in our conversation. What appears to be our greatest vulnerability can become our greatest strength when we stop fighting it and start embracing it. But this journey isn't one we can or should take alone. Success is rarely a solo achievement. Behind every breakthrough, there's usually a network of support, mentors who believed, communities that nurtured, relationships that sustained. Yet, too often, especially as Black professionals, we feel pressure to prove we can do it all independently, to show we don't need help, to demonstrate we're twice as capable with half the support. This mindset doesn't serve us, it isolates us, it cuts us off from the very connection that could help us navigate challenges and access opportunities. Consider what happened at a leading tech company that had set ambitious diversity goals. Initially, they celebrated their success in hiring more Black women professionals. Numbers up, mission accomplished. But soon they discovered a troubling pattern. Despite greater representation on paper, many of these new hires reported feeling isolated and unsupported, with limited access to advancement opportunities. The company faced a choice: continue with surface level inclusion or address the deeper systemic issues. Thankfully, they chose the latter. They invested in transparent pay equity audits. They established sponsorship programs pairing senior executives with emerging talent from underrepresented groups. Most importantly, they created safe spaces where employees could discuss barriers candidly without fear of reprisal. The results were transformative. Within 2 years, promotion rates among Black women rose significantly. Employee satisfaction surveys reflected deeper trust in the organization's commitment, not just to representation, but to genuine inclusion. This example demonstrates another key insight from my conversation with Tearrea. Confronting institutional pain points leads not only to individual growth, but to collective progress toward equity. When we build authentic connections, whether through formal mentorship programs or informal support networks, we create pathways not just for our own advancement, but for those who will follow. This is how we transform individual healing into collective liberation. But what does this look like in practice? How do we begin this journey of embracing vulnerability, prioritizing well being, and building authentic connections? It starts with small intentional steps. First, identify one area where you've been hiding your vulnerability out of fear it would be seen as weakness. Maybe it's asking for help when you're overwhelmed. Maybe it's acknowledging you don't have all the answers. Maybe it's sharing the real challenges you're facing rather than the polished version you present to the world. Choose to share honestly with yourself or someone you trust what you're working through. Notice what happens when you stop performing strength and start practicing authenticity. Second, set one clear boundary that honors your well being above external expectations. This might be declining a project that doesn't align with your values. It might be establishing work hours that protect your family time. It might be saying no to commitments that drain rather than energize you. Remember, boundaries aren't walls that keep others out, they're foundations that allow you to show up fully. Finally, seek out one new connection or mentor who reflects your values and offer support back if you're able. Look for relationships built on mutual respect rather than transaction, on genuine care rather than strategic advantage. These connections become the soil in which your authentic self can root and flourish. These small acts may seem insignificant against the backdrop of systemic challenges, but they represent something profound, a reclamation of agency, a declaration that while we may not control all the circumstances that shape our lives, we do get to decide how we respond to them. This is the essence of what Tearrea Johnson shared in our conversation. We are not defined by our past pains, we are refined by them. Every lesson, every struggle, every moment of adversity carves space inside us big enough for our highest calling. I stand before you today not just as a speaker, but as a witness to this truth. I've seen it transform lives. I've seen it reshape organizations. I've seen it create ripples that extend far beyond individual careers into communities and generations. So I challenge you, what would change if you stopped seeing your softness as a liability and started wielding it as your greatest strength? What would open up if you prioritized your well being not as a luxury, but as a non negotiable foundation for your impact? What doors might unlock if you reach for authentic connection instead of isolated achievement? The world doesn't need more people burning out in pursuit of someone else's definition of success. It needs more people who have the courage to be soft in hard places, to be vulnerable in spaces that reward armor, to be authentic in systems that expect conformity. Because when we transform our pain into purpose, we don't just change our own lives, we create the conditions for others to do the same. We don't just succeed within existing structures, we help reimagine what those structures could be. This is the revolution that begins not with shouting, but with listening to ourselves, not with fighting, but with flowing, not with hardening, but with softening into our truest, most powerful selves. Will you join us